Requiem for Narcissus is a work commissioned by Belgian brass and the symphonic wind band Vooruit. It is a work for both bands together, so that means 14 brass players, 2 percussionists solo, and a full wind band, which gives a huge setup, but also a huge number of possibilities and ideas that I had in my head when composing this piece. The title refers, of course, to the myth of Narcissus, who is a very beautiful young man and is chased by a nymph called Echo, but he's not really interested in her because she only can repeat the last words someone tells her, so that doesn't give very interesting conversations, so he rejects her. And he is punished by the gods, and he looks into the water and falls in love with his own image, and unable to grasp his beloved self, he transforms into a flower, a narcissus. So that's a bit the story, and that's also, let's say, the basis of my work. More the grief of Narcissus looking into the water, into the image. That's why I called my work Requiem for Narcissus. Musically, I translated this by using a chorale by Bach, a chorale which is called O Welt, ich muss dich lassen. It's from the Matthew Passion. And it's a very beautiful chorale, and there my work is, I base my work upon this chorale. So there are 6 phrases. Actually 3 plus 3, so the first 3 phrases come back but in another harmonization. So I used actually the techniques Bach himself uses when he does something with a choral melody. Let's say I took every of the 3 phrases and based each movement on one of those phrases. So for example, the first phrase transposed in C major was the basic material for the first movement of my composition. I derived 2 themes from this phrase. The first one is based on the very first interval of the third, but I enlarged it to a third and an octave, and that's the start of a very wild and hectic motive. That's kind of the first theme of the composition based on the chorale. The second theme of the first movement is also based on the third and is more in the direction of the melody of Bach in entirety, let's say. And so on. So these are the 2 themes of the first movement derived from the first verse of the chorale melody. The second movement of the piece is a very fast scherzo-like movement. I call it Tuba Mirum. It's a title from the Requiem Mass, but also Tuba Mirum because of the lot of trumpet and brass solo instruments. And this movement is based on the second phrase of the chorale, which is so with these intervals being very decisive. And I transformed this into a theme, for example here, where these intervals of the fourth play a very important role. And so on. So this becomes the of the second movement. And then the third movement is the slow movement in general, and is based on the third phrase of the chorale, which is. And this I transformed into a 6-voice horn part. So the big 7th jump upwards is transformed into this slow 6-part horn phrase, because there are 6 solo horns in the work. And the last movement, the fourth movement, it doesn't have a phrase left of the choral. I based on the material of the 3 previous movements, and let's say the chromatic element of the very first theme I played, this one, I transformed into a kind of dies irae like motive. Which I harmonized. That becomes kind of the basic material of the fourth movement. I also used a lot of echo techniques, so the nymph echo plays a very important part in the story of Narcissus. For example, the solo horns are positioned in different places in the hall, and they imitate the solo trumpets or trombones or percussion or the wind band. So the people have kind of sound experience with a lot of echo systems. Also, I used a lot of close canon techniques and other stuff to represent the echo of the story of Narcissus.